Good. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Carr, and I am a long-term disciple of a spiritual teacher named Gururaj Ananda Yogi, who left the body, as we like to say, in the 1980s. And I'm still absolutely fascinated by his satsangs. And as a lot of our long-term members of the American Meditation Society know, back in the day with our guru, we would listen to these satsangs, sometimes awake, sometimes in some strange semi-comatose state. This was back in the early 80s. And I have only really begun to appreciate these things after many years of being familiar with them. And also, I've been a member of many, many different spiritual groups. I've been a Buddhist. I've been an Advaita, non-dual Advaita person. I've even studied a little bit of Kashmiri Shaivism. And I brought a lot of other perspectives to this wonderful guru, Gururaj Ananda Yogi. And he did these satsangs with no preparation, with a question from the audience. And then he delivered always interesting, sometimes wild, filled with his strange jokes. He had these odd little jokes that he used to do, but really, in retrospect, quite brilliant satsangs. And this is one of my very favorites. It's called The Smile of Krishna. For those of us keeping track, the number of it is US 84050, which meant it was given in 1984. I've actually done this satsang at least twice before, but I don't think I have a good recording of it. So I'm glad to be doing it this way, and I'm going to be posting it on YouTube. And in those days, those of us in the audience would be selected, or sometimes someone would get a question from the audience. And the question from the audience in this case was very beautiful. It was, here's the question from Rupa. And she gave two questions. Here's how she phrased it. I'm doing this from memory. She said, what is the meaning of the smile of Krishna? And she said, and this might be the same questions, she said, what is mankind? And I have not put it in this edited transcript, which some of you might have gotten. I sent it out with the announcement, this edited transcript. But I know the first thing out of his mouth was, what kind of a man are you referring to? And at the time, we just thought, well, that's just a cute little witticism of our guru, but it's actually quite profound. Because Krishna is an avatar, which means a embodiment of the divine in human form. And he's one of the central deities in the Hindu pantheon. Gururaj, as a lot of us old-timers and new-timers know, was no fan of worshiping a Hindu god or goddess. In fact, he's on record as saying one time that that's all bullshit. And what he meant by that was that they're not to be taken literally. Unless, of course, you really want to take on a deistic worship of one of the Hindu deities. A lot of people do nowadays. This was back in 1984, when Indian stuff was a lot more Indian and a little bit more exotic in American culture. Certainly Krishna, now I think you'll see images of Krishna. Sometimes in a yoga studio, you'll see the little figure of the young boy playing the flute with his legs crossed. All right. Some of us who've read it known Krishna as the mysterious divine figure in the great Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. And in fact, in my awareness, there are at least 4 different visions or versions of Krishna that run through Hindu mythology, but also Hindu scriptural and spiritual traditions. The first one is one that's very dear to many people. It's Krishna as the divine child, the baby. Gopala, he called him. That's the little colloquial name for him. And he serves a lot of the same purpose of ritual worship as the Christ child does in our Christian tradition in the West. He's to be adored, he's to be taken care of, he's to be cuddled, he's to be loved. The little difference is the Christ child is often portrayed in Western culture iconography as standing upright and quite in control and standing on his mother Mary's lap. In Indian mythology, the divine child Krishna is impish and mischievous and likes to play pranks and jokes. But there was an undertone that there was always something very unusual about this divine child. One of the legends has it that he was very hungry one day, so he's saying, "Mama," and his mother's name was Yashoda. I think that was her name. Saying, "Mama, I'm hungry, feed me, feed me." And she looked into his mouth and she saw galaxies. She saw the entire universe in his mouth. And I'm, by the way, a devotional type when I think of Krishna, because he's one of my objects of devotion. So that's the child Krishna. Also, I go once a week to visit an Indian Pandit friend of mine who does Shiva worships. And he has visions of, he has a very strong feeling for Krishna himself. Krishna told me that he was also a little bit like God, not always sweet and cuddly and kind. There was a famous legend in the tales of Krishna, the mythologies of child Krishna, that a demoness, a female demon, was going to try to destroy God, destroy Krishna. She said, "Come, little boy, I want to suckle you on my breast." And what she had is she wanted to feed him poison through her breast. This has, you can see it is symbolic of the worldly ambition, sometimes poisoning our spirituality, because it can. In any case, Krishna was immune to it. He actually not only did he suck all the poison out of the breast, but he sucked the life right out of that demoness. He destroyed her. He destroyed evil. Mythologically or spiritually, if you're like me, you would see that if you have very strong faith in a divine figure, in an avatara, this is for Beth, very strong faith, it will destroy any amount of toxins, any amount of dangers that you face in this life will be absorbed. You'll be able to withstand it. It will not hurt you if you have very strong faith. That's the child Krishna. The other Krishna, which I'm very fond of, which I think Krishna, Gururaj was fond of, and our group, the AMS, was sort of aware of, is the young Govinda. In mythology, he was treated as sort of a cowherd. He was somebody who attended cattle. He was a village boy, very young. And all the other village girls, the gopis, they called them, they were in love with Krishna. They constantly wanted to be with him. And they would hear his flute in the forest and they go running around looking for him. The allegory being, of course, that all of us are on a search for divinity. We're all searching for a God that can give us love. We want to give love to God and God gives love to us. That's the devotional Govinda, the beautiful cowherd with his gopis. The other image of Krishna, which is very important, which is very dear to my friend, the pandit that I go see once a week, is the Lord King Krishna, the one in the Bhagavad Gita, the one who is the companion to the warrior, Arjuna. Arjuna has to fight to save his kingdom. He has to fight basically his evil brothers, his kinsmen. And there is the Bhagavad Gita takes place in the context of an enormous world war, of which Arjuna is the greatest warrior exponent there. And he has to basically give up everything to follow his dharma, to follow what his destiny, which is to save the whole world. He must commit all kinds of horrors, including destroying many people whom he loves. And he looks to God as Krishna, as his counselor, as his advisor. And the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is, how does one determine what your personal dharma, how does one live one's life in accordance with the divine? I think Gururaj was also fond of this Krishna. Also, Krishna is a trickster, a little meaning he would always do the right thing, but sometimes it sure looked like he was doing a very bad thing. and to give you a good example of Krishna, the God, as the advisor, trying to figure out what is the intention, the will of God. I read a story the other day that I liked, that Krishna was going along with Arjuna, or one of his boon companions, and they were tired and they were looking for a place to stay. So they stopped at the little hut of a stingy, greedy old man. He already owned much cattle and he had a very large estate. And he came to the door and he said, "What do you want?" And they said, "We're looking for a place to stay." "Well, you can't stay here." And Krishna said, "If you will let us stay, I'm the Lord Krishna. I will grant all of your wishes." And the man said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes." "Okay." So he invited him in, and the man said, "I want to be rich and powerful." And Krishna said, "You will in this and subsequent lives achieve lifetime after lifetime of prosperity and riches and power." "Oh, great." But he was still very stingy. He didn't give them very much food. He made them sleep out in the shed with the cows and the pigs. And the companion of Krishna said, "Why did you treat that guy so good?" And Krishna said, "You don't understand God's ways. You don't understand. Your job is to simply worship me, do what I say." Okay. He went along with him and then came to a tiny little hut with a pious, self-sacrificing, wonderful sadhu who lived there and said, "Oh, my greatest joy in life. The Lord Krishna has come to visit me. Please, everything I have is yours. You have my house, you have the food and everything. All I would like is just my cow. That's the only, that's my last cow." And Krishna said, "Thank you," took care of him, took the meal, everything. "For you, my devotee, my friend, I'm going to kill your cow." And Krishna's companion said, "What? This guy was wonderful. He's your greatest devotee." Krishna said, "You don't understand my ways. You don't understand God. Your job is simply to follow me, to adore me, and to do what I say. And you don't understand." Said, "But Lord, no, I don't. Please illuminate me." Said, "Okay." The first guy, the miserly guy, I gave him everything he wanted, and he will learn from lifetime after lifetime how much misery, how much responsibility, how much difficulty, how much agony he has to go through, because he's going to have all the relatives. Everybody will give him lawsuits. Everybody's going to be after his money, and everybody will hate him. The only reason they'll have any friendships with him because they want his money. Sound like a certain president we know? So you will be hated and you'll be miserable, trying to defend what you think is yours. He said, "What about the guy that loved you so much?" He said, "His only attachment in this life was the cow. Now he's liberated. He's gone into heaven because I took his cow." So anyway, that's the Lord giver giver. And the fourth Krishna, all this preface to Gururaj's talk, is God itself. God itself is Krishna. Krishna is everything. And Krishna is the Guru. All this as a background to this incredible satsang, the Smile of Krishna by Gururaj. So I remember I told you the first thing Gururaj says, "What kind of a man are you referring to?" He meant, when he said Krishna is mankind, what kind of a man? The avatara, or the baby, or the beautiful young companion, your playmate, your lover, your wise guru, or the divine Lord itself? What kind of a man are you referring to? So Gururaj goes on to say, the Smile of Krishna is rather more a theme for poetry than the subject for a talk. The Smile of Krishna is the smile that smiles through the entire universe, because his smile is the creation of the universe. Because Krishna, or Christ, smiles, this universe as we know it is created. Now, to me, Christ or Krishna or Buddha mean the same. I'm more interested in Krishna consciousness or Christ consciousness. And that very consciousness is a smile. For consciousness, with its cognition of the universe, cannot help but to smile. Gururaj is implying that consciousness itself, which is treated as the absolute, the unmanifest, that fundamental sea of potentiality of which the quantum foam of the universe, cognition is how it is the logos, how it manifests in this world, it's cognition. If you guys don't know this yet, you will certainly, that everything in this world and everything inside of you is simply occurring within your awareness and your consciousness, Krishna's consciousness. There's no world out there separate from your consciousness or Krishna consciousness. Gururaj is implying that. Consciousness with its cognition in the universe cannot help but to smile. It's a pity we haven't got Jesus's picture with us here. All the pictures that you've seen of Jesus are totally false. They're just artists' impressions. When I was a young lad, I had visions of Jesus, and I used to see him totally clearly. And he never had that sad face with all those tears running down the cheeks. Gururaj said it, that he never had that sad face with all the tears running down his cheeks. He was a cheerful person. Therefore, he taught, be of good cheer. If he was crying all the time, like those pictures depict him, he would have not have taught, be of good cheer. That is the Christ smile. And that is the Krishna smile, to be of good cheer. You know, some of you know that I'm very fond of the Gospels, and Christ said something very mysterious. He said, my way is easy and my yoke is light. I have to say that again. Christ said, my way is easy and my yoke, the thing that you have to carry, is light. This was the man, another cat showed up. Christ was the man who said, you can follow me, give everything that you have to the poor. Give up everything and follow me. That's supposed to be easy, but that's what Christ said. You have to understand that, well, that's enough. Some of you may understand that. Cat, get out of the way. Everything is cheerful if you know how to recognize the cheer. Spiritual types out there, meditators, listen up. Everything is cheerful if you know how to recognize the cheer. Cheer, or that smile, becomes distorted because of your mind. This world is absolutely perfect. We're the ones that make all the problems with our minds. Your mind is that which distorts cheerfulness into cheerlessness. If you look around you, everything is smiling all the time. The flowers are smiling, the plants are smiling, this thing here is smiling, everything just smiles. But that recognition of the smile of Krishna, which is the smile of life, must come from you. You have to recognize it in order to know it. This is very profound spiritual instruction. Have you really seen Krishna's smile? Of course you have. Every time I smile at you, that's Krishna's smile, because I do not find any difference between his consciousness apart from mine. Is he being really arrogant and saying my consciousness and Krishna's consciousness are the same? No. What he's saying is, my consciousness and your consciousness is also Krishna's consciousness, but we don't recognize it. Gururaj thoroughly did. He was a self-realized man. He thoroughly realized the smile of Krishna. We're the ones that don't. You have to recognize it in order to know it. So how do we recognize Krishna's smile? This is what the guru is for. Here's what he says next. Of course you have. Every time I smile at you, that's Krishna's smile, because I don't find any difference between his consciousness apart from mine. It's just one consciousness, and I'm smiling through his smile, and he smiles through my smile. That's what Guru Shakti is. Don't see the human being. See the divine consciousness manifested in that human being. When we get there, the guru, eventually we find that smile of Krishna is our smile. And then we find it's the smile of Donald Trump. It's the smile of everything. And then we're self-realizing. And yet, if you could watch the smile carefully, you would just feel it bubbling over. For I never smile with my lips. I just pull them. Gururaj is saying, I smile with my eyes. And there lies the beauty of a smile, not the pulling of those lips or whatever ways. Every time those lips are formed into a smile, your eyes must sparkle with the radiance. Then only is it a smile. In other words, you watch, I did this last time, most of us ourselves, and we look at these smiles, hi, how are you? You know, sit down over this chair and we'll go over the forms, you know, hi, glad to know you. You know, it's those fake smiles. Gururaj is talking about the laughter, the smiling of the eyes, the divine laughter. The smile of Krishna we can equate with creation, for everything is creating and recreating itself all the time. Nothing stands still, everything is in motion. This is advanced Buddhist understanding. Even a stone, although it might be lying there seemingly still, is in perpetual motion all the time. All those millions and millions of molecules swirling in that piece of stone, that's the smile of Krishna. The universe constantly exploding with creativity and activity and joyousness. The smile of Krishna, or the smile of Jesus, would mean motion, the motion that makes everything exist. For nothing could ever remain static, nothing at all. We think we're sitting here in this room. No, this whole planet is hurtling through space, perpetual motion. And as a matter of fact, I'm busy on a paper. The energy levels of perpetual motion from a non-physics viewpoint. I used to think that was so funny. We would say, I'm busy on a paper for one of the universities on the energy levels of perpetual motion from a non-physics viewpoint. And of course, we're taught in school that there's no such thing as perpetual motion. That's absolute horse shit. God is perpetual motion. Even us who are half mystics know that. Experience never stops. You never die. Everything is completely alive. Completely alive. There is no inanimate, stop that cat. The cat's the cat is in perpetual motion. He's moving my computer screen. When you can capture the non-physics viewpoint of Krishna, you will know what his smile means. I just told you what his smile means. Everything is totally alive and totally in joy. Physicists mix up things. That means people who think and think they've got all the answers. God has all the answers. They deal in solid qualities and quantities, but the smile does not deal with any kind of solidification. What the book I'm working on now is called a reification, to make things solid and real and fixed and name it. It's like those people that take these beautiful roses, or somebody would take the most beautiful person in the world okay, and they want to like describe it, write it all down. Just leave the flower alone, okay? The smile has to do with the inner core of your personality, which is divine. And that's why we call it the smile of Krishna, because Krishna is divine and Christ is divine and so is Buddha. So when we operate from that inner core of our personalities, not the mental level, not the analytical level, not our fear and our greed, when we're not on that level at all, then only do we know how to smile. And when we can really learn to smile, then everything else smiles with you. As that old saying goes, you laugh and the world laughs with you. And when you cry alone. It's very meaningful. If some of you have had the great good fortune to have been in love, or to be in love now, everything is wonderful. Your friends find you very obnoxious. Usually you're very young. Your friends find you very obnoxious. They want to like make fun of you or something because you're just happy all the time. Everything looks great. When you're in a really good mood, things are going well, everything's fine. Somebody says, fuck you, and you just laugh. Most of the time, though, we're in states of fear or greed or upset, and somebody says, fuck you, we get, fuck you back. You know, we're always frightened or angry or something. Okay? When you cry alone. But listen to what Gururaj goes on to say. But you're not really crying alone. You're just crying in loneliness. Because if you really want to cry, for real, then you're going to have to do it alone. To find yourself at one-ment with yourself. And then you let those tears flow. Because then those tears are synonymous with a smile. What is he talking about? When you're highly spiritual, all of you have seen a great beauty or something that moves you very, very deeply. You're weeping, you're crying, you feel an ecstasy. Birth of a baby or a great symphony or a sunset or spiritual emotions, you feel crying. That's what Gururaj. That time you're in a state of divine bliss. You are at one-ment with yourself, and then you let those tears flow because those tears are now synonymous with a smile. That was Krishna's smile, even though you're crying. Have you ever, maybe some of you have had this, you're crying over something that made you just ecstatic, and your friends say, you all right? What's the matter? You say, there's nothing the matter, it just was so beautiful. And I hope some of you, like you see some stupid YouTube video where you have the, you know, the man, the dog who rescues the man or something like that, and you just tear up because it's so wonderful. It's wonderful. You know, the little kitten is wonderful. So you smile, you see the babies, you smile. You cry because they're so beautiful. You find tears flowing and you say, tears of joy and tears of happiness. And then you can also say, well, they're tears of sadness. And what's the difference? They're the same tears. The core of your personality is different when you smile with joy, or you cry with your tears of joy, or you cry with the tears of sadness. That smile or the cry. I'm thinking about Hallelujah, that great song, you know, that we're afraid to admit how much that, you know, the Leonard Cohen, was that his name? That beautiful song. You know, he talks about hallelujah. You know, I think about it right now and I start getting tearful. You know, about a person who's just broken through, there's such an upwelling of feeling, such powerful. The mind is blown, you know, just gets destroyed in that hallelujah. So that's what Gururaj is talking about. That smile or the cry must come from deep, deep within yourself. From the core of your very being. Think about hallelujah. Do you know it takes 10 times more energy to frown than to smile? Those people that are close to me have noticed that I always put a smile on at least 10 or 15 faces. That's the art of life, where you draw out the sadness from people's hearts and you replace it with laughter or a smile. If some of you want to experience ecstasy, then go find somebody in real distress, like the Bahamas, they've lost their home or something, and do something really wonderful and kind to them. You know, bring them a sack of groceries, or you buy them a car, or you're just really kind to somebody and you see them amazed and they just, oh my God, thank you so much. And you'll feel ecstasy in your heart. Okay? It's the law of life, spiritual law of life. It's so easy to do. You can see it in a person's face if you're aware of it. It's the depth of their sadness. And knowing the depth of their sadness, you can yank it out of them and replace it with laughter, joy, and a smile. I've seen so many times the face of some crabby, crippled old person's face, crippled with fear and distrust and hurt and all that. And they see a little baby or a puppy, and like the dog comes up and licks them in the face, and they start laughing and smiling. That's what Gururaj is talking about. It's a miracle. It's amazing. It's why people keep their pets, because it makes them happy. You can laugh, yank it out of them, replace it with laughter, joy, and a smile. That's Krishna's smile. It's also Gururaj's smile. Boy, those of us who knew Gururaj, we'd be sitting there like the living dead in the audience with our usual nonsense. And he would be buffooning or clowning around or saying something stupid. He just did it to try to make us laugh. And my God, did we laugh. It was so much silliness going on. It was unbelievable. You should practice smiling. It might seem artificial in the beginning. Look in the mirror in the morning or whenever you do, and just smile. And smile at yourself. That's where you can begin. And smiling at yourself, you're making yourself happier. And you can pull funny faces if you like, as long as it makes you laugh and smile. And it can become so habitual that the drop of a feather will make you smile. The change of the weather will make you smile. Mark of high spiritual realization is finding joy in all kinds of very tiny things. It's one of the great rewards of a spiritual life, because you don't need a big meal or a great movie or some big romance. You know, you just go look at the sky and you just find it absolutely wonderful. You know, you look at birds and you think they're wonderful. You know, you look at other people in the street and you think they're wonderful. One of the rewards of the smile of Krishna. Practice smiling, he's saying. Practice joy. So try it. Try it on yourself. Look in the mirror and smile every morning. You see, I make you smile by pulling funny faces. Well, do it for yourself. When you face the mirror and you smile. Mind you, it's a very light topic. It's a light topic because your smile must be light as a feather. There must be no heaviness. Very few people really know how to smile. Very few. They might pull faces or whatever, but that's not smiling. In that smile, your eternity must be contained. For a moment, now or later, think of the times you've seen someone really smiling out of real joy. If you do it, it's actually, if you're not in a similar mood yourself, you can barely look at their faces. It's so powerful. Real joy in their face, real smiling. And what you'll do is you'll tend to go like this. Gape at them and look at them. They're very powerful. A person in a state of joy is if they're in a crowd of people, they're very powerful. Then your eyes smile, your lips smile, and something happens inside that's also smiling. So you become the totality of Krishna's smile. Do you see? That's As somebody said, that's what enlightenment is. It means to lighten up. Enlightenment. You don't drift off in some luminous haze somewhere. What's the frickin' point of that? You're right here. That's all there is. It's just, yeah, that's all it is. It's just us. You're not born to be sad, Gururaj says. You're not born to be sad or to be sorrowful or to suffer. You come from this vast creation. You're part of this vast creation. And that creation is laughing all the time. Creation is laughter. Everything around you is laughing and smiling and enjoying itself. That because of the stupidity of people's minds, they don't recognize who they really are. They're lost in the darkness of ignorance, sadness, and misery. That's sin, by the way, is to be sad or lost in misery, self-pity. Did you know that? That's sin. Not being a bad boy or girl. If you have fun doing it, go ahead and be a bad girl or boy. They're nothing but the product of laughter. Now this, I love this part. So can you imagine that when a man makes love to a woman, there are about 5 million sperm in one ejaculation. And you, that one sperm, have reached the mark. He says, and you know how you came into being. That one sperm out of 500 million sperms. Isn't that enough to be joyous about? That 499.999 million just got lost on the way, but you reached the mark. Look at that combination of when the sperm meets up with a woman. Isn't that a celebration? Isn't that joyful, where divinity combines itself with divinity? How can that be sorrowful? That little sperm wiggles its way into the ovum. It does not only wiggle to propel itself, it wiggles in joy. Like a little dog wags its tail. That's always one of my favorite passages. We in the audience and listening to her, I was talking like this, you're just like, I'm like, what? I can't believe he's saying this kind of stuff, but he was. It's so, who talks like this? Only an avatara, an incarnation of joy itself. Trust me, the Ramakrishna literature that we read now has been expurgated. They took out all the racy bits and the silly stuff. Christ must have had a whole lot of absolute nonsense he used to talk with the disciples. And they cleaned it all up. Oh, stupid cats are fighting. Stop that. You're supposed to be in joy, you idiot. A dog is feeling joyful, therefore it wags its tail. So that little sperm that you started from also wagged its tail. Life is so beautiful. Never feel sorrowful. Never feel distraught. And always feel joyful. For in anything which you find unpleasurable, remember the un is only a negation of the pleasurableness. I've thought about that for 38 years, and I've remembered that frequently in my life. When something unpleasant is going on, I'll repeat it. For in anything which you find unpleasurable, remember the un is only a negation of the pleasurableness. Take away the un, and in any situation whatsoever, there must be an element of joy in it, for Krishna is smiling all the time. This is his play. As he played with the gopis in Vrindavan, danced with them and blew his flute. Charlotte, you may have heard me over the years repeat that phrase, because that etched. I would sometimes say it silently to myself when I'm witnessing or I'm in the middle of something which is very unpleasant. That melody of his flute, that melody is a smile so that others could hear and fill their hearts with that melody. And anything that is melodious produces a smile. That's Krishna's smile. Now, Krishna loved Radha very much. That's part of the mythology of Krishna. It's the young Krishna, the Govinda, the cowherder. His chief cuckoo, his great love with Radha. Symbolically, Radha is considered to be the soul. Krishna is the divine beloved. And in AMS, we're always talking about our beloved, meaning our guru. And the love affair with the guru is similar to that of the soul, the gopis, with their Lord Krishna. Radha was the most beautiful, and the queen among all of the gopis was Radha. He had 1,600 gopis, his playmates, and yet each and every one of Krishna's gopis loved him so, so much. And one night, it was a full moon night in Vrindavan. Vrindavan was a divine forest. It's an actual place in India, but it's also the divine forest. It's the way this life actually is. If you're in love with God, if you're a devotee of God, a bhakti, this whole world is Vrindavan forest and moonlight, and you spend your whole life looking for God, occasionally encountering Krishna or God for a night of ecstasy, but also looking, yearning for the divine in the forest of the world. That's Vrindavan forest. And this is the rasa, the dance of Krishna. So he goes on, he asked all of his gopis to be there that night. And he manifested himself. He duplicated and replicated himself into 1,600 Krishnas. And he danced with them, with each one of them, to make them each feel that they were all equal to him in his love and in his smile. That is the smile of Krishna, where you can be simultaneously at so many places at the same time. So therefore Krishna is smiling all the while, that eternal while, which is eternity itself. I'll read that last sentence. That is the smile of Krishna, where you can be simultaneously at so many places at the same time. So therefore Krishna is smiling all the while, that eternal smile, which is eternity itself. Some of us in a high state of bhakti or a high state of meditation have experienced a state of mind where the small mind drops away, the discursive intellect drops away, the chattering mind, which is judging and having pleasures and pains. And you simply feel everything around you. You feel all the space around you and any images that come onto your mind. For example, something that normally would upset you. Let's say climate warming would upset you. Climate warming occurs, you realize this is all this interplay, this smile of Krishna. It's all okay. It's all okay. Impossible for people who do not know what the smile of Krishna is to understand that. They want you to get upset. They want you to go to a protest line. This is bad. You got to stop this. This has got to be changed. Blah, 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 blah. The story that quickly comes to mind, and I think you'll understand it. When the great sage Vivekananda, he was the great disciple of Ramakrishna. All right, he went on after Ramakrishna's death. He journeyed through India, spent several years, I think, just journeying up and down. They didn't even know where he was. Everybody was wondering what happened to, Swamiji. He was the leader of their little band, and he disappeared. He was simply a wandering sadhu through the world. And he came to an area where he saw a ruined temple to Kali, and he was going to rebuild the temple. He started getting the workmen, the village, everybody together to rebuild the temple, and he had a very vivid dream, and Kali came to her in the night. She said, what are you doing? She said, you don't think I could rebuild that temple in an instant if that's what I chose to do? She said, you don't do anything. I do everything. You're just an instrument. Just do what I tell you to do. You don't have to worry about a thing. I'm taking care of all of it. I add a little bit to that dream. But what does it mean to surrender to divinity, to surrender to that divine smile? Understanding that everything in the universe is God's smile and is functioning perfectly, even if your experience of it is not. Nevertheless, it's, in perfect unity. It's in perfect harmony. I've actually finished up a little bit early. I will unmute the mic. And if people wish to say something, let's see how I can do this quickly. I don't want that. I want to manage participants. The love of God is very hard to understand. Very, very hard to understand. Taking you all the way back to that story about Krishna, where Krishna seemed to be giving everything to that greedy, nasty man, and seemed like to take away from that other man the one thing he loved in all the world, which was that cow. Very hard to understand the ways of divinity. In fact, very hard. Anybody?
Hi, Jeff.
Hello, beloved.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So I want to challenge your "it's hard to understand" comment, because my own sense and experience is that what's hard to understand is putting it into a kind of conceptual framework and explaining it, but that there's this natural settling in it's always there when in an experiential way, and it's always observable, always, and understanding when it's there, it's kind of like, understand it, who needs that? It's just there, it just is. It's a ground of being, and brings on this ridiculous patience for all of these concerns. Just experiential as a meditator, throwing that out.
What she's saying.
No. Can you hear me?
I do. Just thinking about that. A lot of us, including me, why is the planet going to burn up? Why are all these people suffering and dying? Why all these things that the mind get upset? And yet, like Christ, Father, if this could, but thy will be done, Father, and you're right, actually, what does it mean when these great teachers, these great mystics, everything is perfect the way it is?
Well, but I want to throw out, people will talk about Matteo Ricard, the happiest man in the world, yes, with his gamma rays on his EEGs. And there's this ultimate sense of everything is fine, and yet you get up in the morning and you write a letter to your congressman, and you you give your spare change to the person standing on the corner hungry, but it doesn't and you notice your strong emotion and your thought, and that's just all it is, coming like a cloud and the rainbows in the sky. So it's, I guess I'm talking about ultimate versus conventional reality, and the bliss of having those together, and the coexistence in awareness of those fleeting emotions, and the gerunding of it all in the context of it's all working perfectly. So
I think of, for those of us, since this particular satsang and Krishna is about bhakti, about devotion or joy in divinity or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, I think about that love play between Radha and Krishna. They're the same entity, of course. They aren't different at all, Radha and Krishna. God is loving itself. And Radha is frequently crying. She's missing her beloved. Why did you betray me, O Lord? Why? Where are you? I've given up everything. I used to be a respectable woman, and now I've abandoned my husband and my family to come in the forest to play around with you. I'm a despicable woman, and yet you've abandoned me, and all this sorrow. So it's interesting. But she's an aspect of divinity also. We're aspects of divinity.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're right.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's also a line from the Rumi poem that I just love. He said something about he gave his coat to the beggar and he felt so proud of himself. And then he looked at the ocean of sorrows and he fell right in.
Yep.
Hallelujah. I think about that word of hallelujah, hallelujah. You know, that song to me was so profound because that's what this is about. It's like,
yes,
we get broken by life and yet hallelujah, hallelujah.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I have the divine gift of being in constant contact with a homeless person every day.
Wow.
She's in California, so I can't go down to the little corner and buy our sack of groceries.
Right.
And it really is, you know, every day we talk about, you know, have faith, you know, just have faith. And it's like, other than saying I love you to her every day and that I still care, that someone on this planet still cares about her, there's no smile of Krishna for her. I mean, it's like in survival mode. She has got so many issues. And it's like really challenging me to go, okay, how much luxury is spirituality? You know, us having the luxury of talking about smiling.
Yep.
When, you know, pain and protecting your little space on the corner,
yep.
You know, for being stealed or raped, you know, and just reminding her to take a breath, stop, breathe, you know, relax, do the next right thing, one step at a time, you know, instead of constantly running. I mean, it's just, it's like darkness and light. And maybe that's why she's in my life.
Right.
Anyway. So, well, she called half an hour before this, so it's really fresh in my heart right now.
It is a blessing. And yes, there are those of us who in this life decide to live out the role of Mother Teresa. There's other ones of us in this life that be the homeless person. In another life, you'll be the homeless person. And in this life, you are who you are with your own sufferings and your own losses, but also your deep, deep well, passion, a yearning, a crying in the forest. My Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? Why hast thou forsaken me? And that's, as hallelujah, Beth, it's a beautiful life. And your homeless person, who knows who knows what this relationship is? It goes on. I know it's you know, you could become homeless yourself. That's not going to change her situation. You're both blessed.
Yes, it's a real blessing. It really is a blessing.
Well, whenever you doubt God's presence, you realize, oh, these miracles are happening all the time. These miracles, I don't understand them, but they're happening all the time, all around me, all the time. And I have to stay open to them.
Mm-hmm. It's just so hard to talk to her about faith and love and hope.
You don't have to. She's not that, as Vivekananda said, for a starving person, food is God. Don't worry about talking to her about your spiritual life. For her, safety, security, and I'm sure she's mentally a little difficult too.
No, that's what I do. Yeah.
Just give her whatever charity. That's very high things. It's inappropriate for you to become a homeless person. That's your fantasy. You do what you're doing. She's doing what she's doing. And you're in this world have been given the blessing of learning about compassion, which is what you're doing. Learning about, oh my God, I thought I had it bad. Look at the ocean of suffering, which I've fallen into. Look at the ocean of suffering. I gave my coat to the beggar, and I feel proud of my generosity. Then I look at the great ocean of suffering. Oh my gosh, I've fallen in. Now you know what that Rumi poem means. You're living it. You are that man. You're Rumi. Christ and the woman at the who touched the hem of his garment, felt the virtue go out of him. Who did that? Who did that? Christ, the lover of the humanity, the all-beloved one. If he really was what people mythologize, make up Jesus to be, he would have simply waved his hand and everybody was happy and fed and everybody had a big car and they had 2 or 3 houses, a boat, and everybody's health was perfect. No, he lived in a world filled with misery and suffering, and he himself was tortured to death. Did you know I didn't tell you what happens to Krishna at the end? Maybe we'll do this if you don't mind. I'll look it up. Krishna, the divine Lord himself, knew the cat just jumped from something off my beads. Krishna lived a long life. After he helped Arjuna win the great battle, the Kshatriya plain, he went to his kingdom. I talked with my friends. He seemed to know, he seemed to not know. He lost his kingdom. It was invaded and destroyed. He himself lost everything. God, Krishna, lost everything and wandered out through the world in the forest. He finally wandered destitute until he lay down to go to sleep, and he had his feet sticking out from the bushes where he was asleep. And a passing hunter was hunting a deer, and he saw Krishna's feet. He thought it was the ears of the deer, and he shot into the bushes and killed or shot Krishna. And he went up, he said, oh my God, I killed God. And Krishna said, he says, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And I found out from my dear friend, the Pandit person, I found out that just last week, why that happened is because in another part of the Mahabharata, 1,000 lifetimes previously, Krishna had done something that he had to do to this man and wounded him, severely wounded him. And the man demanded justice from Krishna and said, how could you do this to me? I demand reparations. You've hurt me. I demand that I be able to hurt you. And Krishna told the hunter, he said, you were that man in that previous life. This was all meant to be. Don't worry about it. And Krishna died
The cat did
alone,
something.
abandoned, and
Did you hear the cat on the keys?
on the keys? Oh, somebody else's keys? No, yeah, my cat went to sleep here.
You're frozen, Jeff.
Hallelujah. Am I frozen? Yeah, and I'm on the Charlotte. Who would say I'm supposed to be on Ethernet, and yet it's still not working?
She's
All right, that's a sign, beloveds.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Say
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye, bye, loves.